there to the coast, and my kids were building sandcastles, and all of a sudden they get upset when water or the tide would come up and knock it down.
You are listening to Saints in the South.
All right, welcome to another episode of Saints in the South. Glad you are with us, listening and or watching. And there's some of y'all out there love us so much that you listen to the episode and then you go and watch the episode. So that's pretty awesome right there.
That's awesome. We appreciate it. Yeah. Who's that one guy?
That's
It's my mom.
Yeah. Hey, well, I don't know about y'all, but I had to remind myself a few times while I'm reading this that I wasn't reading about our day. I'm actually reading about historical events that took place, back.
Absolutely.
It is written for our day, right?
It's absolutely written for our day.
So,
in general, you can see this stuff happening in government today and in the world, period.
Yeah, I was reminded as I was reading. So.
Yeah, so today's title is "The Rock of Our Redeemer," and we'll definitely get into that. But just to kind of jumpstart us here, so we've moved on from Alma, the book of Alma, and we are now in Helaman, and we're going to go through chapters 1 through 6 today.
Yeah,
but again, just to jumpstart us here, Pahoran, the chief judge, he dies. And his three sons, Pahoran and Pahanchi, and then Pacumeni. You got it.
Yep. Keep going. I'll come back to it.
So Pahoran, he actually wins the election, and Pacumeni, he, following the law of the land, returns to the people. But you got this other son, Panchi or Pan? How do y'all pronounce that?
It's here we go. It's Paanki.
Paanki. Okay, there you go.
Paanki, according to this. Yeah. But you got Pacumeni. That's right.
All right. So Paanki, he doesn't like it. And so he goes about and starts again stirring up the hearts of the people. And he ends up being charged with treason. And he goes to be sentenced. He's sentenced to death, right? Mm-hmm. And then we've got Kishkumen, who goes in and he ends up murdering Pahoran, the chief judge there. And then it's interesting. He's a speedster, man. He's a track guy. He takes off running, and they're not able to catch him and stuff. So, and these secret combinations, the people that keep him hid. His identity is unknown, and then Pacumeni ended up being placed in his stead there. So
and he goes under disguise and all these kind of things. It's but Kishkumen did, and Kishkumen goes under disguise. Only other, I think of Abinadi also went under disguise, but way two different types of people here.
Right.
Way two different agendas.
So that kind of gets us started. So, there's, different wars and everything that goes on. Gadianton, he's a Nephite dissenter, and he ends up being placed at the head of the Lamanite armies. They go in and start trying to take over into the city of Zarahemla, and you end up having your wars and everything. Anybody, what jumped out to y'all in these chapters?
One thing I wanted to mention was Helaman. This is actually Helaman's son, Helaman. So this is actually Alma the Younger's grandson.
That's
Helaman.
right.
That's whenever we get to the book of Helaman, a lot of people want to think that it's just Helaman, and, like that we've been, Alma's son, but this is actually his grandson's record. That Helaman, his father's record, ended in Alma. He was sort of the last part of Alma, some of his record. But anyway, so this is Helaman Jr., if you want to say. Yeah. Helaman the Younger. But just to get started, I like the way that in verse 18, There's a lot going on in the government. This, like y'all, we said earlier, this sounds a lot like our government today. A lot of things that are going on today. It says it came to pass that because of so much contention and so much difficulty in the government, they had not kept sufficient guards in the land of Zarahemla, for they had supposed that the Lamanites durst not come into the heart of their lands to attack that great city of Zarahemla. So the Lamanites have decided to come up, and this guy, this Gadianton dude, he's pretty, I guess, prideful. He thinks, hey, I can do this, and they basically march to the center. I mean, right to the middle of the Nephites, and they say, we're going to take out the biggest, baddest city, and we're going to just go right in there and take them down. And he does that, but we see that we should never, as far as on the Nephite side, we should never let our guard down. Because the Nephites weren't ready for this. They just automatically thought, well, nobody will ever come in here. Nobody's ever going to come into my house, and because they're crazy, they know that we're a powerful nation, and they're not going to march here and take us over. But
it's something I wonder though. Since they supposedly it says they had the borders guarded really well, how do you think they got to the center? How do you?
No, it said
they must have found a. Where they were trying. Okay.
Yeah. It said.
What was their plan?
Yeah, it says.
It seems like they would have caught before they even made it to the border, though. I wonder if they just found a looking for a weakness or something to.
It says, therefore, Gadianton in verse 20 did cut down the watch by the entrance of the city, and did march forth with his whole army into the city, and did slay everyone who did oppose them. So I think they were just a big bad army.
They actually through then. Okay.
Yeah, they actually had some. There was some. Some clout behind his claims of being a powerful army. They were, and they come right on in there. But the thing is, Zarahemla thought they're not coming here because we're the epicenter. We're the biggest part of the city, so they're not going to come. But he does, and he actually takes over, starts to.
Not only does he take over, but he takes Cumeni and slams him up against the wall and just beats him to death.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying, man. This was a force to be reckoned with. Probably something like they've never seen this kind of boldness probably from the Lamanites at this point. And but my thing is, I thought of this. It makes me think of our homes. The reason that the enemy was allowed to get into the home, so to speak, in this case, was because there was some contention in the home. They had things going on. They weren't paying attention to outside enemies because they were battling their own selves. They were inside there. There's contention. There was these people that want kings and these people that want. It was just a lot of stuff going on, a lot of heated stuff, and so basically their guard was down and they were vulnerable to outside enemies. That's when Satan's going to attack. Satan wants us to be contentious in our homes. He wants us to be contentious within our families so that, hey, now I can get to them. Their guard's down. I can really mess them up now, and that's what happens. That's where it starts. And I just thought that was a pretty cool comparison to how we need to be careful and keep our houses in order and keep our, keep that contention out of our homes, because contention is basically the gospel of Satan. I mean, in a nutshell, that's what it is. That's what he wants. He wants us to be contentious and all these things. So anyway, I thought it was a pretty interesting little comparison there.
I know contention definitely makes us weak. It reminds me of that scripture talking about homes, Marcus. In Mark 3:25, it says, "And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand."
Absolutely, and this is exactly what happened. Yeah.
So I could about bet you if you asked any of the Nephites during this time in the Nephite society, what was their biggest threat, their biggest enemy, would be like the Lamanites. If you asked any of them,
right? Yeah, I mean, you would think that would be
going to tear you down, but in reality, and we're going to learn in Helaman 1-6, especially towards the end, how it's how they had three enemies, contention. Because right there in verse 18, at the very beginning, what Marcus said, there was much contention within the government.
Exactly.
Contention, secret combinations, and pride. Those are the three things that really tears down the Nephites. And ain't necessarily the Lamanites anymore, but it's definitely contention, secret combinations, and pride. Those are the things that tear down the Nephite society. as we start to read these next few chapters. So,
well, what happens is you start to focus more on the contention and the problems within and your guards. It says there perfectly, it says, insomuch that they had not kept sufficient guards in the land of Zarahemla because of everything that was going on. They didn't have their guards out there to even see the army coming.
Right.
And I guess that sort of answers to Kenny's question. How were they able to get there? Nobody even noticed, pretty much. And I'm sure somebody noticed, but it was just too late.
Yeah, that's the lesson there. Can't let our guard down, man. Got to watch out for those weak.
Man, I'm telling you. And this wasn't something they thought, and they just, and it was part of that pride thing. These chapters, man, we're going to talk a lot about pride. And I think Zarahemla, we're a mighty city, you know. And, well, I mean, we got to be. It don't matter how strong we think we are. Sometimes we got to be careful, you know.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, so Gadianton, he ends up basically, as you move through that chapter, biting off more than he can chew. He kind of gets a big head and starts going after all the Nephite establishments, and then a guy by the name of Moroni, the head of the Nephite armies, ends up battling back pretty good.
Which is the son of Moroni.
Yep.
Captain Moroni.
That's right. So you know he's got some strategy in mind.
Well, Gadianton was very overconfident, like you said. It was to his detriment because he basically surrounded himself with his enemies. That's what he did. He went in there and he said, I'm going to the heart of the city. And it was as a symbol to show his strength and power, to say, I can go straight for the heart, straight in the middle. But Moroni thought, okay, well, this is actually going to work to our favor. Because now he's surrounded. All of our surrounding cities now can just fall in upon him, and that's what they kind of did, and it, you know, it took him out. But so there was some bad mistakes on both sides as far as, you know, the things that happened here. There wasn't much. There was little guidance for either side, either army, because they were so preoccupied with themselves on both sides. You know, so. One was the pride of how strong they were, and the other ones were fighting among themselves. So, well, I was going to say it takes continuous action. You know, reading, praying, fasting, temple tenets, magnifying callings, all these things for us to overcome this contention and pride and things, and you know, to keep our home safe. You know, it takes action. You know.
Exactly. As I was reading, you know, seeing the contention, and we'll learn about secret combinations and pride, I started seeing solutions too, you know, like uniting, calling, believing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, there in 1:6.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Pac-Man and Pac-Amini? What's his name? Pac-Man?
Yeah.
He said when he saw that he couldn't.
He
said on unite the people, he said when he couldn't see the judgment seat, he did unite the voice of the people, you know, unite, you know, don't content, you know, and believe, you know, there's all these verses I got right here on paper, how we're on my phone, how there are solutions to these contentions and secret combinations and pride. They are solutions, definitely. You know, the Lord is not going to, you know, weaknesses, obstacles are going to come our way, but again, there's solutions to all these problems also found in the scriptures. You know, the Book of Mormon is not just going to tell us the bad things, you know, definitely good things to come if we search for it.
You know, if they had not been so contentious among themselves and things going on, and you know, they're obviously the guards wouldn't have been distracted, and you know, so it's like I say, you just mirror it to ourselves today. That's why this was written. I mean, this is we got to be watchful, you know, for the enemy.
Protect your home.
Protect your home.
This is so the other day. I thought about this particular movie clip, and I showed it to my kids, and I said, "This right here is how I want to be, and how I hope y'all see me." Okay, so I'm gonna try and share this real quick. All right.
Okay.
You cannot pass! Get out! I am the servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Arnor. The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udun! Go back to the shadow. You shall not pass!
Yeah,
Gosh, man, that's such a good scene.
I love
dude,
this thing.
Dude, I read these books when I was like 18, I think. And man, this scene, like dude, Gandalf was my favorite character. And when he died, man, I threw the book down and I almost didn't finish reading it. I was so mad. I was like, you stupid book. I was like, you can't kill Gandalf. He's my favorite character. There's no sense in me even reading this stupid book anymore.
That's funny.
Hey,
But then he's resurrected.
Yep, that's right. That was the coolest part.
Yeah.
That was the coolest part. They're the themes, the Tolkien, Tolkien and C.S.
Oh,
Lewis were
Tolkien, man, that
contemporaries.
dude.
And they were like, C.S. Lewis was more overt in his spiritual like symbolism, whereas Tolkien was a little bit more sly about it, so it's not obvious. But yeah, Gandalf definitely, yeah.
As I mentioned earlier about secret combinations, Gadianton. Yeah, so we're getting ready. We're getting introduced to him, and we're going to learn more about him later. But just how there, in talk about the secret there in 2:4 about secret work of murder and robbery, and 2:8 murder and rob and gain power. How he was trying to overthrow just a wicked person. So a lot of
how much of that stuff, how much of that secret combination stuff you think goes on today in the government?
Man, all I could, what? Here, I'll tell you this. It's been a while back, probably 3-4 years ago, but it got me curious. And, that's what they said to be careful of. But I wanted to look at, I thought, I wonder what mafia, which you don't hear a lot about mafia today. You hear more about gangs and things like that, MS-13, whatever. But some of the bigger gangs.
Yeah, Giuliani took them out back in the day in New York.
Right.
Yeah, the mafia. Yeah, I'm sure they were all eradicated at that point. But no, what I'm getting to is that if you look at some of the YouTube videos about people that were like former mafia and stuff, man, they do rituals. They do oaths. This dude was talking about, he didn't go into detail, but I was just sitting there going, dude, this is Book of Mormon. This is like the same stuff, man. And so, that, absolutely going on today. Absolutely. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So we see again, we see a lot of that stuff that we read the Book of Mormon. It's amazing to really, think about, what goes on today, with secret combinations and so forth. In chapter 3, where Mormon talks a lot about the travels of the people moving northward. He goes into detail about men traveling to the land northward, and it speaks about the narrow passing, and it just makes me think of that narrow passing on South America and up into Central and North America.
Yeah.
And, talks about there being up in the land northward a lack of timber. And so you think of the desert, Nevada, Arizona, Mexico, forth, and then it talks about how they did a lot of shipping back and forth, and just really industrious, man. How industrious they became and made cement houses and stuff. It was really interesting stuff to read, and especially as you go back and I haven't done a whole lot of archaeological study myself, but I know there's a lot of information out there, and we actually went on a Boy Scout trip probably 8 years ago now or so, where we traveled out to the Grand Canyon and over in Arizona, and we stopped by and saw these historic sites where Native Americans had built these cement houses and everything. Really, really neat to see. And then you read it here in the Book of Mormon. It's like, Yep, it's true.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that there wasn't a lot of timber. So what did? They didn't turn around and say, "Well, we better head on back because we don't have a way." But they start to become.
They were resourceful.
Yeah, very resourceful with cement and all these other things. They started learning how to build out of other materials, and it was
they
pretty
push on through.
Yeah, right away.
And I think it was cool that they were smart. They were too. That they, when a tree came up, instead of saying, "Oh, there's a couple of trees over there," they purposefully waited. Like, okay, hold on, we need to let the trees grow back, and then at a certain point, we'll have timber and we can start using them again. So yeah, they were pretty smart about their use of resources.
Yeah, they had their own Green New Deal back then, right?
That's right.
That's right. That's right.
So
I know chapter 3. Yeah. Chapter 3 is when we start seeing the word pride in a lot of these verses.
Yeah,
talking about pride.
Well, if I was going to mention in verse or chapter 2, also in verse 5 in chapter 2, it just says, this is where Kishkumen, he's actually overtaken by Gadianton through flattery of words. Right. So their own, mannerisms, he was overtaken anyway. So Gadianton becomes the leader, and but that's the thing, man. Their whole purpose of these Gadianton robbers was for power and praise. They wanted to be worshipped. They wanted to have all power. And you go back, man, it's the very selfish desires of Satan himself. I mean, it's one of the most rawest forms as far as what Satan himself wants is through these Gadianton robbers. It's like it's for power. It's to be worshipped. It's to be, that's exactly what's going on here. And these guys, man, Gadianton didn't learn these things. You know how it said Alma told Helaman, don't let these things out. He never did. And as a matter of fact, it even says in there that Gadianton didn't get these secret oaths and signs and things from him. He got them directly from Satan. So Satan gave them to him, just as he's done over and over and over since, Adam, Eve, all the way up through the, and so he gave them to them. And so anyway, so that's what's happened here. It's all for power and praise, man. It's exactly what Satan is after himself, which is why Satan fails because of pride,
So speaking of pride, as we've mentioned, obviously, as we've talked about, history repeats itself, right?
Right.
So think about that on a church level. So they had many dissensions within the church, and as their own pride within the church, they lifted themselves up in pride, and they began to rebel and do these things. So I got to thinking about that. Well, if history repeats itself, we talk about the government and how things are going as a country. What about how things in the church? Think about how a few years ago you started seeing at General Conference when the dissenting votes against the prophet, against the quorum of the 12 apostles. People becoming more verbal about those things. And I went and I wanted to get a quote from President Nelson, which he tweeted out just a few days ago. And it was amazing to see some of the responses, and I'll read them to you. But President Nelson, he tweeted, "Dear friends, the road ahead may be bumpy, but our destination is serene and secure. So fasten your seatbelt, hang on through the bumps, and do what's right. Your reward will be eternal." So some of the responses were nicely vague, just the way the Mormon sheeple like it. And then another one, "I do respect you, but it would be great to hear something specific. We're in a civil war. Families and friends are torn apart over politics and racism, and half of the people in the church lie and treat others horrible. So please be specific." And then the last one was, "When's the last time you actually had a revelation?" And it's just like, my gosh, and I don't know if these people are members of the church or not, but the second one surely sounds like they are. Hey, we need specific revelation. And there were many people on there saying, "Hey, your specific revelation comes to you personally. You've got the scriptures, you got prayer and stuff." So
I mean,
Megan and I were talking just the other day. I was going to say about something related to this. How we've talked in a previous episode before about a revelation and about how gosh, I can't remember now who was it that was told to hold back on what they were teaching or what they were writing. But we had mentioned how, like, maybe, if I guess kind of wondered aloud if if the prophet today has knowledge that he has been given, but he's specifically been told to don't share this yet because the world isn't quite ready for this. So whenever President Nelson speaks, sometimes I can't help but wonder how much more does he actually know than he's saying.
I believe.
Is he like, I wonder, so I wonder if he's just like chomping at the bit, just like, I really want to share this, and like, Lord, I need to share this. And the Lord's like, no, hold on, just hold up. They're not ready for this yet. Just be vague for now. Just be reassuring.
Yeah. I think there's a great example when Alma the Younger told his son Helaman when he gave over the plates, and he told him, he gave him the vision that he had. He said, 400 years from now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, this whole civilization is going to be wiped out, et cetera. And it's just kind of like I said before, how, Helaman had to be sitting there going, what the heck, what's the purpose then? If we're all going to be wiped out, nobody's going to be, why do I even need to be, and so, which, we talked a little bit about that in the other podcast, but what I'm getting to is I believe that. I believe that Russell Nelson knows some things that we don't know. Obviously they have to, know things so that they can be on top of it, as far as like having it in place, having programs in place, having things that we need. We see it now. We see the Come Follow Me. All the things that's happened here recently has been remedied by things that were put into place over a year ago. And so,
it's usually only in hindsight that we see how well
exactly.
Right.
And so, there's these people that want these grand signs and things, and this is throughout the Book of Mormon. We see that,
Yeah. And I think his latest tweet is a perfect example of that. He's like, listen, it's going to be bumpy. Okay. Fasten your seatbelts, hang on. Okay. But stay strong, so he's given us some, warnings out there, he just can't say, hey, by the way, next year, the economy is going to come crashing down and we will have a greater depression than we did back in the 1920s.
And he did say, one thing that, and I'm not saying that this is what he meant, but it has crossed my mind many times. We all probably remember that time he's with Elder Stevenson. He said, eat your vitamin pills, get your rest. There's a lot to come, and so for me personally, for me and my family this year with this pandemic, all these unusual changes in our world today and here in the United States, for my family, we've trying to go, food storage has, we're trying to get better on food storage, security, just all these different things, taking vitamins, getting your rest, just a lot of things personally and spiritually for my family, trying to do. He has warned us. He didn't, he's there as a prophet to warn us and that's not to say that's what he meant, but.
And that's the way it's intended for us to do. Just what you're doing and talking about. That's the way. That's the way.
There's three factors here that people forget, and one is Russell Nelson's a man. He's just like us. He's here to work out himself, to work on himself and to learn things and to go by experience, and just as we are. And he is also a prophet. He can be given things that needs to be given him, but it don't mean that he knows everything. But the things I want to say is that I think Andrew sort of hit on it there. It's consistency, man. It's not, you can't, just as it says, you can't learn the gospel by sporadically touching a few pages here and there in the Book of Mormon or in the scriptures in general, just barely just sort of fanning through the pages and thinking you're going to gain a great understanding and testimony of the gospel. You got to dive deep into it, and you got to remain consistent with it. And so when we talk about prophets and we talk about revelation, it's just as Andrew said, man. You heard President Nelson say this, but do you know what he said 3 years ago? Do you not remember this? And that should have been a part that goes with this, and so there's consistency throughout. You have to stay with it. You can't just pick and choose what you hear from the prophet, because if you do that, you will wind up going, why can't you be more specific? Why do you always, this or that? I mean, it becomes that way because it looks that way because you're only getting fragments. And so we have to be consistent. We have to do that. And the third thing was is the remembering. As I've said over and over and over, remember what the Lord does. Look at these examples in the Book of Mormon and see what can happen, and prepare yourself that way. Also, it's in the scriptures, man. We're reading it. We've said it already. This is things that we see today. So let's see how it plays out and how it should play out. The way that we should go. So there's a lot of things. There are a lot of factors that people have to. We got to put our work in. We can't just sit back and wait for Russell Nelson to tell me which way to go. Yeah, that's not how it works.
You said there's more to come. Take your vitamins, get your rest. And, this could be, for some, this could be our Liberty Jail, as Joe Smith was there in Liberty Jail for 4 or 5 months there. He was struggling, and we find these revelations there in Doctrine and Covenants. But, it could be for our learning. During this time, absolutely. If we look at the positive and find the joy, which the leaders of the church continuously are preaching, that find the joy in these tribulations, in these times. So we have been warned, and I'm just trying.
Kenny, how many times is the word remember mentioned in chapter 5?
It's when Helaman's just the part where he's talking to his son, it's 13 times. So it's pretty significant, definitely. The word
and how did his sons turn out? You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the reason. It's not that they were more special than anybody else. I mean, it's just that they put the work in and they did what they were supposed to do, and so the Lord used them. It's like, I can use you because you're willing to pay attention and know what's right and do what's right. So that's how it works, man. I mean, it's.
So I got a question. So in the in chapter 4. It talks about how the Nephites, verses 11 through 13, how the Nephites suffered because of their pride. They're losing their way, turning to wickedness and things like that. And the suffering was a direct result of that. So as a people. So my question is, do you see that on an individual basis in our own lives, and their destruction, and will we and do we see that in our own country because of people turning to pride and turning away from Christ more and more? The ultimate downfall, is it going to be a direct correlation due to our wickedness?
I think
absolutely.
I think
I say yes.
Well, because individuals make up the whole.
Right.
Make up the whole group. And so, it absolutely, it goes both ways. You want a strong people, you have to have strong individuals. You want a strong nation, you got to have strong individuals. You want a weak nation, you got to have weak individuals. And in verse 35 in chapter 3, it says, nevertheless, they did fast and pray oft and did wax stronger and stronger in their humility. And it keeps going. They purified themselves. They repented. All these things are done as individuals. You can't repent as a group. It doesn't, repentance is an individual personal thing. And so
salvation is personal.
Yeah. If they're doing this and all of a sudden the people become stronger, you see what I'm saying? And so it's the same either way. It goes either way. So it's definitely an individual thing. And as you just said that, Jackson, we see a lot of the bickering back and to and the sort of the division, obviously, in this country now. And you go back to that thing, you got your outside enemies, which are being made. I think you think of China, you think of Iran. There's a lot of countries out there that hate the United States right now, mainly because we're asking them to do what they should have been doing in the first place. But they hate us. But that's when we're sort of an internal contention thing going on in the nation, which I believe is happening.
Oh yeah,
that's even more. That's we got to be careful.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. I don't know about y'all, but I've seen it not to such an extreme degree, maybe, but definitely in my personal life.
Yeah,
where things. It seems like when something bad happens, that's when I've been humbled, and when I do, recognize that my need for the reliance on the Lord, and try to get back and doing the right things. And then when things start getting good, it's easy to start slacking on things, and prayer, reading scriptures, whatever. I'm doing fine. I'm busy,
right.
and then something happens, and it's like, I have even from time to time kind of recognized when things were going well for me and thought, oh my gosh, I need to get back. I need before something bad happens.
I mean, it's like
I'm starting to get worried, man. Things are going well. I need to.
It's a personal
get myself in check here. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a good thing, honestly, as far as you recognizing it. I think that's where we get in trouble. Honestly, this whole thing with pride, the antidote to pride is to remember. I think that's a good equation, like a formula to put up. To cancel out pride, you need to remember. Remember what the Lord has done. Remember who He is, what He can do, why you have what you have comes from the Lord, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If we would just remember, as Lehi and Nephi with the sons of Helaman here, which would be the great grandsons of Alma the younger, Lehi and Nephi that we're talking about. These guys, they had power. It says they had power and authority, and we talk about the power and authority thing. They had authority through their lineage of the priesthood. That's where they got their authority. But the power came because they were obedient and they were worthy. That's where the power came from. The reason they were able to do what they were able to do was because they were worthy and willing and ready and obedient, and the Lord could work through them some very miraculous things, as we see started to take off, man. There's a lot of great.
That reminds me when we're talking about remembering how, when Helaman was talking to his sons, he used the word remember 13 times.
Yeah.
And one of my little thoughts I jotted down was how remembering is such an eternal principle that's talked about throughout the scriptures. It's something that whenever we take the sacrament, what we're doing is we're doing that in remembrance. And then when we go to the temple, and the elements of temple worship have to do with remembering and bringing things to our remembrance. And so this is obviously a big deal, and it's all throughout the Bible, throughout the Book of Mormon, everything. And I got to thinking about how when you think there's so much emphasis on remembering, maybe wonder, how is this, why is this thing? And the more I thought about it, I realized that when we remember things, like if you're trying to study for a test or if you do anything, they always say it's better to study in little chunks, right? You're not supposed to cram. You need to look at something and study a little bit and then set it down and come back to it later and do it again. Yeah. Because what's happening is the more you remember something, you're actually building those neural pathways in the brain. You're literally physically changing the physical structure of the brain. And this is talked about usually a lot in the context of addiction and stuff, because what happens is, when you build a pathway, it's kind of like, you can use the analogy of clearing a path through the jungle. You've chopped the path, and that's the path you go to whenever you need to get to your place. But you have to find new ways, and whenever you try to find a new path, you have to get out your machete, and it's difficult. You have to kind of chop that new path, and every time you go through, you've got to chop a little bit more. So when we're actively remembering and actively bringing these things back to our memories, we're literally building neural pathways, and it's bringing us closer, bringing more in alignment with the Savior. And just for some reason, it seemed cool to me that we're bringing ourselves more in alignment with His will, spiritually, mentally, and even physically, as in we're literally changing the physical structure of our brains, as we continually remember and continually focus on these things and go back to them.
Something I thought of, Kenny, as you said that, it's so true that our physical selves become different when we remember. And so everyone, I think all four of us here have played a guitar before. We've picked up a guitar, learned a chord or whatever. And I've done things where I try to learn a riff or something, and I'll sit there and, man, I'll get frustrated. I'm working on it, and I can't make my fingers do what I want them to do, and it's like, I can't get that.
Story of my life.
Yeah, over and over. But anyway, I try over and over trying to get it. And honestly, the best thing that I ever do, and it may not be for everybody, but if I let go of it, if I just stop with it, go into something else, or actually just put the guitar down for like a day, come back the next day. It's like all of a sudden my fingers are like, it's like it kept working in my brain to figure out, you know, like you're saying, it sort of rewires itself to where your fingers now do what you, and so it is really a physical change, man. It's like the brain's something we understand.
You know what to expect.
Yeah.
You know what to expect now.
Yeah.
The next
and you put the work in. You got to put work in.
For sure.
I'm not saying that it comes, you know, just, I can just stare at the guitar and all of a sudden I'm just saying it, but you got to put work in, and your brain has to adapt to it.
Yeah, I think that's the point. Yeah, the point is the work that you have to put in.
Yeah, you have to put work in, but it will come, you know, if we put our work in, and the Lord will help us.
Unless you're Andrew and he just hears it and he plays it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. we can't all be Andrew.
I thought it was pretty interesting. So Nephi, son of Helaman, he's in the judgment seat, right? In chapter 5. And he ended up turning, he's like, man, is it enough with this government stuff? I'm going to hand it over to Caesarum, and I'm going to go about preaching the word of God. And we've seen several times in the Book of Mormon, you know, or like the sons of Mosiah saying, nope, I don't want anything to do with that. I'm going to go about teaching the word of God.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, man, politics is an ugly game, man, and a lot of people just have no desire to be involved in that stuff.
Their great grandfather did the same thing, you know. Remember Alma?
He's
said,
like,
you know what? I can't do this anymore. I've got to go out and preach. You know what I'm saying? And so this is them doing it also. But you know, it's all because of how they live their life and know what's important and know where the things that they have come from. They didn't allow pride to get to them because they kept focused on Jesus Christ. They kept focused on their God. They kept focused, you know, it was something that they couldn't allow pride to get in. I mean, I'm not saying they were impervious to this temptation. What I'm getting to is they were strong enough to withstand it because they had their priorities right. They knew where to put their focus, you know.
Well, we've mentioned it before about what kind of influence can we have on people, and it's like when you're thinking politically, you know, it feels like everybody's made up their mind, and you're really not going to sway anybody, you know, any other way. Yeah. And so Nephi, I think, kind of feels the same way, and he says, you know what? But I can be an instrument and turn people to the Lord. In verse 2, it says, "For as their laws and their governments were established by the voice of the people, and they who chose evil," this is astounding, "were more numerous than they who chose good. Therefore they were ripening for destruction, for the laws had become corrupted." Oh my gosh, is this 2020 we're reading about?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the same. It's one of them patterns, man. Same patterns, you know. It's that whole pride cycle thing.
Yep.
Kenny, didn't you have a thing to show what that?
Yeah.
I want to see that.
Let's take a look at
it. Visual.
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
Roll that beautiful bean footage. There it is. The old pride cycle there.
That's the beauty there.
That's right. That's what it's all about. So this happens, like we've been talking about. I've kind of wondered about this when we compare it to our current social and political climate. You know, I wonder where are we at in this process right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's what's the first one?
Any of
that's
them
the thing. It's a cycle. Yeah,
any of them can be first. You know, you could start out being a humble and repentant person, and it could lead to righteousness and prosperity, and you start to become blessed. You start to realize you may just, it's not, you know, some people want to say that you physically, or you what's the word I'm trying to think of, intentionally, I guess, put off the Lord. It's not that. It's just that you're so happy and you're so content and you have everything you need that you just sort of start to forget to maybe pray, or you start to forget this and that because you don't really need it. I mean, that's what you start to, you know, I put need in quotations there, but you feel like you don't need it. Everything's great. And so that leads to obviously wickedness. As we've said before over and over, you can't stand still. You can't, you're either backsliding or you're moving forward. And so that leads to pride, wickedness, and then of course that leads to destruction and suffering. And the destruction and suffering is put on by ourselves, but that leads us back to humility, because then it's like, oh yeah, I need the Lord again. Nobody can help me now but the Lord. So the thing that helped Lehi and Nephi was that thing we talked about where their father, Helaman, told them and taught them eternal perspective. That we're not to seek our reward in this life, we're only to prepare for it here. In other words, our reward is an eternal reward that we're working for. Our reward is not to get as much gold as we can get. Our reward's not to get as much political power that we can get. Our goal is to obtain that eternal reward. And, the thing that we should treasure the most, which is a heavenly reward, something from our Heavenly Father that lasts eternally. And so he taught his sons that, he taught his sons like, hey, look, guys, you're in this life is not to receive the reward. That's not what this life is for. This life is to prepare for it. And so they got that, man. They understood that well. And so they're not looking for treasure of the world. They're looking for treasure of heaven. And that's why these guys were able to do what they did. They had an eternal perspective. They understood it and they went for it, and they made choices to go for it, so.
That's right. Treasure in heaven. That's my favorite church video.
Oh yeah.
We talked about that, the John Tanner story, Treasure in Heaven, the John Tanner story. Like, oh man.
I think I showed Andrew that one time at work, or I told him about it. That's that guy, he's one of those quiet, you don't hear much about, and man, that guy did some awesome things and was.
Yeah. I never knew about John Tanner before I saw that video. I was like, oh my gosh, man, like
it's good.
This guy single-handedly saved the entire church.
Yeah. Honestly, but he was blessed by the Lord to have financially, to have all that financial stuff. But that, a lot of people want to know, why am I blessed, or, what's the purpose of being rich or whatever? Because there's nothing wrong with riches. I want to put that out there. There's nothing wrong with prosperity. There's nothing wrong with riches, having riches.
Not in and of itself.
Absolutely fine. There's no evil in money. It's the love of money that corrupts us and makes us evil, or to start to do evil things. If we're not careful, if we're not putting our focus where it should be. But the reason the Lord allows us to have things, and the reason he tells us to be out of debt and things, is so that we can actually help others and help others financially, or help others in other ways. I mean, that money, man, it's not going with us, and it can be used for a lot of good. I'm not saying give away everything you got, but the Lord wants us to remember that it came from him. Like, I allowed you to have this. And so what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with this? But anyway, so the riches themselves aren't bad. The Lord wants us to have that. That's why he allows people to have prosperity and riches. That's why these people, because they were good, they were allowed to have these things. The Lord wants to reward us with,
as long as it doesn't become an idol.
Right. And then it becomes that, and that's where everything goes.
It's like
south.
the rich man. Where was that in the New Testament? The rich man that came to Jesus and was like, man, I've done this. What else do I have to do? And Jesus looked at him and said, you need to sell everything you have and give all your money to the poor, and then follow me.
And then come follow me. And he couldn't do it because he said he had sad. Because he said he had many things. We
don't know. We don't know in the end if he did.
We don't know if he did eventually, but he did there.
Yeah. At that moment, though, he was like, man, I can't do that. Yeah,
that's a great thing for us to understand. I mean, it's like, the Lord, everything. If we just keep that perspective, that eternal perspective, we'll be a lot better off.
How about if we just build a house if we build a sandcastle there on the beach, would it stand or not?
Depends on how close to the water it is.
What's up? So the other day,
just start getting all technical.
So the other day we live close to the beach around here, and went there to the coast, and my kids were building sandcastles, and all of a sudden they get upset when water or the tide would come up and knock it down, and then all of a sudden we saw a storm come, so we left, and preparing for this podcast, it reminded me of this famous scripture, Helaman 5:12.
Oh man, that's good.
It's
one of the greats, man.
I told them last night how their sandcastles would fall, the water. But when that storm came, obviously they tried to build a sandcastle before they left, hoping it would stand. But I told them later that it went down when that rain came. But but those houses there on the beach, those houses on a firm foundation, they still stood still when that storm came.
Yeah.
And, Helaman 5:12 is that famous scripture. Remember that is upon the rock of our Redeemer, who is Christ, the Son of God, that he must build your foundation.
Not upon riches, not upon,
So if we build our foundation upon the rock,
mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ, we can withstand. And when those obstacles do come,
clarify that, not Dwayne Johnson.
So my son said that when I said the rock, he said, "We talk about Dwayne." Talk about the rock. So we had to clarify that. But reading the scripture, I'm reminded of Jackson. That was your scripture. I remember serving with you there. Just I just remember just seeing Jackson Howell then right beside it, Helaman 5:12. So
Yep. So let me make the attempt. Okay. So everybody watching and listen, there's I'm not cheating right here. Okay. You ready? And now my sons, remember it is upon the rock of our Redeemer, who is Christ, the Son of God, that ye must build your foundation, that when the devil shall send forth his mighty winds, yea, when all his hail and his mighty storm shall beat upon you, it shall have no power over you to drag you down to the gulf of misery and endless woe, because of the rock upon which ye are built, which is a sure foundation, a foundation whereon if men build, they cannot fall.
That's pretty much it right there, buddy.
Amen.
I mean, my goodness.
So I was, I was in a sacrament meeting one day giving a talk, and I went to go quote that and talk about mind going blank. I said, I'm going to quote a scripture for you, and I could not remember it, man. I was like, golly.
And the thing is, it's the first line. Remember.
That's right.
Yeah, no, that's the scripture. That is the very first scripture that pierced my heart. I was 16 years old on splits with the missionaries, and this missionary shared a scripture with somebody that was looking into the church, and that person never ended up joining the church. But I fully believe that scripture was for me, because it was that at that point that I started really thinking about, okay, am I going to serve a mission or not?
Yeah.
It's a how true is it? If we really build our foundation and and our foundation is Jesus Christ, when those whirlwinds do come,
because they'll come.
Yeah, absolutely,
no doubt, no question.
Yeah, for sure. But if it's built upon that, we'll be better equipped when always.
Absolutely.
We'll be equipped. We'll be able to tackle it. But if we're kind of talking to my kids again last night, if we go ahead and make the decision now, not to say certain words, if we go ahead and make a decision now to watch only these certain YouTube videos or these certain TV shows, if you go ahead and make the decision now, it's easier when it does come your way. If you go ahead and make a decision now, not to
decide to decide.
Exactly. Obey the word of wisdom. Go ahead and decide now. Don't decide when someone asks you.
When the storm is beating upon you,
exactly.
It's hard to make a correct decision at that point.
Exactly.
And that's I love right. that in that verse. It says the storm beats upon you. In other words, it's not just raining on you.
That's right.
It's kicking your butt, man.
That's right.
And so you better be ready. You know what I mean? I love that in that verse.
And it's coming.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Jacob had said that he's done also. It was really interesting to hear him talk about it, because, he was on the last episode of the podcast, and we were talking about how when he was, 16, 15, 16, he was really kind of pushing back pretty hard against things. But he's talked about how he got to a point where he realized that, okay, if I make certain choices, then I'm going to limit my options, regardless of, he recognized that, okay, I'm still figuring things out right now. So if I make certain choices, I'm going to limit my options in the future. But if I make these choices here, and you go ahead and decide how I'm going to act and how I'm going to talk and the things that I'm going to do and not do, then at the very least, I'll kind of leave my options open and, be able to have more choices, and which to me was a really good way of looking at it. Even if you don't have a rock solid testimony at that moment, then it's just smart.
But he had hope,
I think it's so cool that in the same chapter that we talk about this rock, this foundation to build upon so that you can withstand temptations, withstand the powers of the devil. that they talk about that this little story of Aminadab comes up. And Aminadab was a Nephite dissenter. And by the way, how many wars between the Lamanites and Nephites started by the Nephite dissenters? Like pretty much every war we've talked about up till now was started by a group that said, "Oh, we're mad," and they run over to the Lamanites and they stir them up into fighting. You know,
in this one they go over the Nephite and the Lamanites, dude. We're done, man. We're done. We're peaceful over here. Okay.
I know. But I just want to make mention righteous. Aminadab was a Nephite dissenter. He had turned his back on the gospel basically. And so he maybe was on that firm foundation for a while, and then he decided, you know what, I want to go off, and whatever the reason was. And so he goes off. But I love this by Elder F. Burton Howard. He says, to find the way back as Aminadab remembered, one must repent and pray until doubt and darkness disappear and important things can be seen again. It is possible to return. Because he knew what to do. He knew all the Lamanites around him that were, scared to death when Lehi and Nephi had all the circle of fire around them and the darkness came around, and all this kind of stuff. They were scared. And so they were like, what do we do? And of course he knew he did fall off the rock or whatever you want to call it. And, but he found his way back. He remembered the things, that was part of that remembering. That's what brought him back. He remembered. And I love what Elder F. Burton Howard said. He said, and when they do remember and they come back, they will know, as I know, that the Lord is more concerned with what a man is than what he was, and where he is than where he has been. So the Lord is more concerned about who we are now than what we were in our past. That's so right. Aminadab, I would assume, came back to church and came back to the gospel. So I just thought it was interesting. It's in that same chapter of staying on the rock. There's going to be some that do get knocked off the rock, but if we'll remember and come back, we can get back, and that's the power of the atonement. So,
well, that's a good point to end on right there.
Yep.
So we thank everybody for listening. Thank you for watching, and until next time, y'all keep on striving. No, but hey, everybody out there, check out our Facebook page, Saints in the South. Our Twitter, which is 5 Southern Saints at Saints in the South. And then our Instagram is Saints in the South with a dot in between each word there and stuff. And our Patreon account. Anybody out there willing to give a penny or two to help keep this thing moving forward? And we greatly appreciate. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Greatly appreciate any contributions, and thank you for those that have contributed. So,
absolutely.